repetitive process over and over and over again. Otherwise, if it's anything but that, then we have to think there's a man sitting in here who won't give you what you want until you keep screaming just to aggravate you. It has nothing to do with that. It's talking about a scientific principle of building on that energy, building that energy up stronger and stronger until it finally hits the point, hits the contact, voila, you've made contact, you've completed the circuit. And that's what it is. See, and so it's simply a scientific principle.
Watch the video for my kids, please. I will not be alone. I will just...
And it's being conveyed to you through stories in the Bible. Just like we're doing with Abraham and all of these things in Genesis. There's scientific principles about the operation of the brain and the electric circuitry of the brain being conveyed in stories. It requires constant electrical effort before contact is made. You know, for instance, I mean, anything you do, you know, if it's worthwhile, it takes time. You set a plan in action, and then whether you're building something, whether you're planning something, or whether you're doing something, it takes time before you can make contact. There's another story that points this out, which I think is pretty good, and I, once again, didn't put the thing down, but you're on Luke 11. Go to Luke 18. Luke chapter 18, whatever page that's on, you'll find it, okay? And if you look at Luke chapter 18, here's Jeheshua the Christ telling another story. What is it? Okay, Luke chapter 18. Look at verse 1. He spoke a parable that meant always to pray and not to faint. In other words, keep the effort going. Don't quit, you know. And in this way, we know we're talking about meditation. Okay, and he says, there was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded men. In other words, the guy, he didn't care about anybody. And there was a widow, and she came to him and saying, avenge me of mine adversary, help me out. And he would not for a while, but afterwards he said within himself, I'm not interested in God, and I really don't care about people, but because this widow troubles me, I'll avenge her, I'll take it, lest by her continual coming she wearies me. And then Jeheshua says, and shall God not avenge his own elect, which cry day and night to him, though he bear along with them? In other words, what's being said here in the story about the judge, he could care less. How did she get him to give her what she wanted? She didn't let up on him. She kept coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. And this is what you do. This is what you do in this room. You come back and back. So there's a very, very important part that we've heard from Jeheshua the Christ said, be persistent. Keep doing it. Don't stop. I mean, who else you going to get to tell you how to do this? I mean, you get, there is nobody else that can explain it to you. You have explained to you here, and this is the key. You want to get from the earth, you want to get to heaven. Okay? What is lower is not in contact with what is higher. God is here in the higher part of you, you're here in the lower part of you, and the two are separate. The God part of you and the earth part of you, or the carnal part of you, are separate. See? So, what do you have to do? Let's say, for instance, let's take another. So let's say, for instance, you're in a big department store, or you're in an office building in New York City, and the person you want to see is on the 7th floor. Well, you're going to stand down at the 1st floor and wish that you were there? Oh God, Heavenly Father, in Jesus' name, I claim that I'm on the 7th floor. No, you're not. You're on the 1st floor. And you know what? You're going to stay on the 1st floor until what do? You either get on the stairs and climb up, or you get on the elevator. But what happens? You know what? Religion doesn't want you to be able to do anything. Christianity doesn't want you to be able to do anything. Jesus said you've got to do it. They say no, stay on the 1st floor and just claim that you're on the 7th floor. Okay, I'm on the 7th floor. And you were supposed to get your loan and get your $5,000. The guy never shows up. I didn't get it. Well, because you never left the 1st floor. But you claimed it anyhow. See? And so you find out that what have you got to do? You got to climb the stairs. You got to get in an elevator. You got to do it. You want to get to the 7th heaven. You want to get to the 3rd heaven. You want to get to that place within you. Then you've got to do it. And you know what's amazing to me is you can teach this stuff. You can show these people what Jesus said. It doesn't make any difference. Sing the songs, claim this, Jesus is going to do this, and the heck with it. Just forget about yourself. You're nothing but a... It's like Al Vera was talking today about the evangelist or the preacher on television. The earth is no good, you tree huggers and flower sniffers and all this stuff. And it's nothing. God hates it. He's going to blow it up and burn it down. And you know, this is what... This is what, here you got a whole book about creation and all of this, God's most magnificent planet that we know of in the universe, and religious people are the prime ones to say it's a dump. Because where do they want to go? They want to go to another planet. We talk reincarnation. We say it's true. There is eternal life right here. Oh, no. I'm going to another planet. It's like the guy on the second floor. How are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? Well, we realize, obviously, that, you're not going to get there. You're going to stay right here. Jesus or Joshua talks of another aspect that can interfere with the lower touching the higher. And when we have vanity, when we have arrogance, we have physical desire, it stops communication. There is a problem that I have a lot of people in the New Age movement. And a lot of it is this, it's, hey, if you wave smoke or you sit on a rock or you put a feather in your ear or you stand on your head in Arizona or something, you're going to fly up. No, you're not. You're not. There's scientific principles. And smoke and feathers and all that stuff aren't going to do it. You have to plug into the same thing. The emotions must be purified. Because the emotions are what holds you down here. I think Rose said that this morning. The emotions are what holds you down here, and you've got to purify them. So how does Jesus say to purify the emotions? Take no thought. It's exactly what happened this morning when the king of Sodom said to Abram, listen, give me the people, you take all of the material. He said, I don't want a thread. In other words, I don't want a thought. I won't take a thought. Okay. So there is a need to totally separate. Ouch. There is a need to totally separate from the, for those of you, I have a little sensitive spot there, and on my hand, I'm talking about, and and I hit it. That's all right. But there is a need to totally separate from all religious feelings and traditions. That's the most important part. The most important thing in reaching from here to there, if one thing I could say all this night, is get rid of religion. If you can get religion out of your mind, out of your brain, you'll make it. But as long as you're going to dwell in the superstitious insanity, it is. It's a connection between superstitious and superstitious. Then what do you want to do? All right, what can you? Let's take a look at. You at Luke 18. Go to chapter 10. Verse 10. And Jesus was talking about two guys go up to pray. One's a Pharisee and the other is a publican. And the Pharisee said, boy, God, I thank you. I'm not, as these other men are, extortioners, unjust adulterers, or either as this scuzzy guy standing next to me. That's what it says in the book. Here's the publican sitting there, and this other guy says, good God, am I glad that I'm pure and saved instead of this wretch next to me. Look at this guy. What's he doing in here? Praying, doesn't even have sneakers, Get rid of him. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of, look at that, I give tithes of all that I possess. But the other guy standing far off wouldn't lift up so much of his eyes, but he smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful. And I'll tell you, Jehoshua the Christ said, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalts himself shall be abased, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted. How do you humble yourself? You do not have to lay out in the dirt, or you do not have to pour garbage on your head in order to humble yourself. You humble yourself when you separate from thought. You simply say to yourself, self, it is not me. Self, it is not the mind. Self, it is not my ego. I am giving that up, and I am opening myself to the Christ. I am opening myself to God. The key phrase in that little story is that one that exalts himself shall be humbled. In other words, when you try to raise yourself up to heaven, you're going to be lowered to earth. And that's why a lot of, whether it be in mainline religion or Christianity or the New Age movement, I see a lot of that, and it bothers me, of people with all kinds of gimmicks and all kinds of techniques. You took up the New Age Journal, which has done us a lot of good. But you see advertisements, you can get special glasses with earphones you put on, it'll take you in a one-way flight to heaven, and all this bizarre stuff, It's not going to work. There's only one way you can do do this. There's only one way to fly an airplane. You got to get up to a certain speed and then it goes. And there's only one way to get to heaven, and that's the way that's been defined in the ancient text. And that's through meditation, a Christ-centered meditation, a God, if you would, centered meditation within yourself, not with all of these gimmicks and all of these this lunacy, because it's just, I'll tell you quite frankly, of what I see, whether it be a New Age or the other, it's just a way for people to make a buck. And that's all it is. People making a buck on other people. And this is the beautiful part about this. This doesn't cost 10 cents. It doesn't cost you a penny. All it does is require you to be obedient to Jehoshua the Christ and control yourself in a meditative state. That's all that you're expected to do. See? So you've got to feel this nothingness in yourself to break the attachment from the earth. And that's what's important to do. Jesus totally closes down on the power and the need for public prayer. It's an interesting thing. Many in the circles of Christianity today are campaigning all over the country to get prayer into public schools. They want prayer in public schools. And they want people to be able to pray in public. Do you know that is 100% contrary to the instructions of Jehoshua the Christ? Absolutely contrary. Everything that this wonderful voice of God told us to do, this religion has said, don't do it. Let me show you if Jehoshua the Christ agrees that we should have prayer in public schools. Go to page 781. And in page 781, this is his description. You're in Matthew chapter 6, and if you look in verse 5, he says, and when you pray, don't be like a hypocrite. Matthew chapter 6, and if you look in verse 5, he says, and when you pray, don't be like a hypocrite. Don't be like somebody who wants to stand in a school hall and show how religious they are. They love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, and you could add in the public schools, that they may be seen of men. Don't be like that. You see what he says? Because they've got their reward. And what is their reward? Their own ego. But you, when you pray, enter into your closet, and when you shut your door, pray to your Father which is in secret, and your Father which sees in secret shall reward you openly. Now look.
Need a UGC video for your business? Find me and many other skilled creators on Fiverr. Or you could.
They profess Jesus, and yet they do not and will not ever turn themselves and say, we'll do what he says. Well, we do what he says. You know, it's a funny thing. This one church that's considered the outlaw church is, I think, the only one that obeys Jehoshua the Christ. We'll do exactly what he says. And that doesn't mean you build a closet in your house or go into your shoe closet or anything like that. That means you go into yourself, and there in the secret of your own mind, you offer yourself up to that which is the God who dwells within you. And that God who dwells within you will answer you in secret. And then it will manifest to you openly. But how can you justify religious groups saying, get prayer back in public schools, we want to be able to pray, when the leader of the pack said, that's not the way I want you to pray. I want you to pray in secret. Just think about that. Is there anything that he said that they are in agreement to? Hardly. Notice that the Father is in secret. It's total mystical consciousness as taught by Christ. Entering in your chamber means entering within yourself. And I want you to see something, those of you who are here. It's a very mystical thing. That's an ancient Eastern statement for entering within yourself and closing down the thoughts of the mind. Enter the closet and close the door. Not curiously, it is contained in the very same chapter as what else? Matthew 6:22. Look down at that. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, your whole body shall be filled with light. There's a point where Jehoshua the Christ talks about the single eye in the same chapter that he talks about entering the closet and close the door. And what else does he talk about in the very same chapter? Go to Matthew 6:25. Right where you are. Take no thought for your life. 6:27. Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit unto his stature? A cubit is 18 inches, which is 9. Why take thought for raiment? And all of this business. So here in that same chapter, Jeheshua the Christ says, take no thought, practice the single eye, and pray in secret. And practicing the single eye and taking no thought is praying in secret through meditation. That's the instruction of the one that they place on their bumper stickers. I love Jesus. You don't love Jesus because you don't do a doggone thing the man said. You refute and repudiate everything he said to do. And in fact, not only do you refute and repudiate what the man said to do, you turn around and call those people who do obey him and do what he says to do cultists and all kinds of evil names. So those are the instructions as how to transmit from the lower to the higher. How you get from earth to heaven. And who did I quote through the entire time? I did not quote the New Age Journal. I did not quote Carl Jung. I did not quote Buddha or Krishna. I quoted Jeheshua the Christ. Okay. Who, you know, if you just tuned in, he has an alias that he's known in Athens by as Jesus. But I mean, in the Holy Land, or whatever you want to call that mess, he was known as Jeheshua. So, what you're talking about then, let's put it in its proper way. What you are talking about then is known in other circles as telepathy. Is that how you spell it? You know how to spell it. Telepathy. Mental telepathy. They'll love that one down at the old parish hall. But nonetheless, that's the way it is. Mental telepathy. Getting that thing plugged in and moving it. And what do you ask for? Okay, let's get this all off of here. I'm glad I washed the board off. It got worse. This is it. We wrap this up. Are we okay back there? Okay, this is it. We wrap this up. What do we ask for? That's very important. That's a big question, and I want to make that. And I know I sit and I have a tremendous amount of respect for the man who sits in the front row here, because he's a brilliant man spiritually. He's a brilliant man of science. Teaches me a lot of things. And I know that as a scientist, when he conducted a scientific project, what he was asking for was the truth. What is true? Science is not prejudiced. Science does not say, I'm going to conduct this experiment and I want it to come out like this. Science says, I'm going to conduct this experiment and what comes out will come out, and that'll be the truth. If you were watching recently in the O.J. Simpson case, there was the story of, I forget what they call these people, not pathologists, they're forensic experts, and there was a fellow from China who was hired to go to California, and he was to check to see if he could determine a particular cut on Mr. Simpson as to whether it came from a cut in a glass or it was in a fight. And he went back to Connecticut from China, and he spoke in Chinese, and he said, this type of science, the answer has to come true. I cannot be influenced by those who want it to be from the fight. I cannot be influenced by those who want it to be from the cut glass. I can't tell. I cannot tell. So, in other words, this is exactly what he was saying. You have no business asking for anything. You simply have to ask for the truth. What is right for you? What is true for you? What should be? And many times you say, well, I want it this way, and it is not right. And all of the things you can recount in your life, and probably in most instances, we were talking about this at lunch, a lot of stumbling blocks that have made it possible for you to reach this point where you have an opportunity now to really to fly on the wings of nirvana. But that's what you ask for. You ask for the truth. You don't try to experiment and make this come out a certain way. Because that's what most people would like to do. You know, we see it all the time. You see it all the time on television. And, you know, they say that this person's going to get healed, and the guy jumps out of a wheelchair and all of this kind of business, because they've got to make this come out instead of simply saying, what is the truth? What is the truth? See? And so what you need to find out in your meditation, and it will come to you, is what is right. What is right for you? What is right for your life? What is right for those in your experience who come around and are part of your life? And so, who should be your teacher? I think that we've proved tonight that an excellent teacher in how to pray is Jeheshua the Christ. And Jeheshua the Christ has been very specific. The kingdom of God is within you. You have no place else to look. And the first thing you should do is seek within yourself to find that kingdom. I quote that on the authority of Jeheshua the Christ of the Bible, who's the one who taught that. You should look within yourself. And he said very specifically that as you look within yourself in this meditation, practice the single eye. It is important to practice the single eye. You can concentrate that energy between your eyebrows. It's as ancient as the Hindu religion. That's what Jeheshua the Christ said you should do. He said you should pray in secret. You don't want to get involved in a lot of public praying and things like that. Get within yourself. And the Father who dwells within you, which is the mind that sees this in secret, will reward you. And he says that you should take no thought. Separate from your thoughts. He also has been very specific that you take away the key of knowledge by not entering within yourself. So what better authority to tell you how to get from earth to heaven than Jeheshua? Jesus, if you would, of the Bible. That's the only one we've used as an authority tonight. And those are the things that he taught. The things that the religion that claims to love him says are occult and evil and of the devil. Are the things that he said are absolutely essential for you to do if you're going to raise yourself from the earth to heaven. What is prayer? That is prayer. Yes, ma'am.
You don't think it's between prayer and meditation?
I say meditation is prayer. The question was, do you see any difference between prayer and meditation? Prayer is meditation. Meditation is prayer. I see an absolute futility in mouthing words other than to yourself. And I see there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to get into a situation where you want to use some type of a vocal prayer to instruct yourself or to put yourself at ease or to make yourself feel comfortable, but just be aware of the fact that the only one that's listening to it is you. Once you get to that point, if that gives you peace of mind, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong if you want to, if you have peace of mind figuring, well, I'll pray to God somewhere. There's nothing wrong. If it makes you feel better, but you're the only one that's going to experience, it's going to make you feel better. That's fine too. You want to pray for somebody else and use prayers and words, that's fine. But that's not going to change the fact that Jeheshua, Jesus the Christ, said, practice the single eye, take